And it's kind of what I said with Olivia is that social media to me, it's so fascinating and it's so fun just because I have a psychology background and I get it and I understand how it's a reflection of people, it's a reflection of where you are as a person. So I think that's what makes Matt so good at what he does is because again, you have to stay authentic to who you are. You have to stay authentic to your likes and interests. But again, that's a beauty in itself because growing up, something that I always talk about is I was always like the only brown Latina in the room. Like I was always, um, especially around my family, like a lot of my family that was Hispanic on my dad's side was a little bit lighter skin. So I was always usually the brown skin girl in the room. And again, a lot of people didn't understand my stories or didn't understand where I was coming from because I had a whole different perspective, I had a whole different just background on things. And so that's what makes social media so special is that you get to share your experiences with other people and then you realize that other people have the same experiences as you do. But I want to go back to interactive content because actually Austin hit a really good note, but this is something that you guys could do through your interactive content, especially when you're posting on Instagram. Maybe you do want people to get to know you better and you want to build that personal brand. Even if you're posting a lot of business stuff, you can still post personal content because again, people are not only doing business with the business, but they're doing business with you. They're doing business with what you stand for. So something that me and Matt always do is we always post stories, but we make them interactive in a way where we're asking your audience questions. For example, like this one, he put a CTA, like text this number. So that's a way that you can interact with your audience is by putting like a number in the story so that way people can text you. That will also drive leads that are ready to work with you. So that's a really, really good way where I always like to say the stories are almost like the cherry at the top of your funnel because again, your content is just so you can attract people. And then through your content, you start nurturing them or pulling them a little bit closer to you because they get to know you. But then your stories is really, really where you grab their attention. So in your stories, you only have two things that they can take action. They can listen to you, they can click your link, they can vote on a poll. For example, I had one right here where I said, send me the link. And then everybody that voted here, I send them the link. So those are ways that you can interact with your audience. Again, make it fun. I think yesterday I posted like another story and I asked my audience like, hey, what tool do you guys use in this perspective? Again, your stories is really where you're going to build those relationships. You're going to start conversations. And the only thing that could, come out of that relationship is one, you meet a new person, or two, you meet a new prospect or client that could work with you. And if you want to add anything on stories.
Yeah, so stories are super, super fun. You can be just as interactive or as personal as possible. I love that Austin said that he posts videos and doesn't edit them. That or type of organic content. People love doing that. 9 times out of 10, as much as I preach it because people pay for my services, that organic content like works really well versus the highly edited stuff that I create. I don't know why it does that, but people like to see they love to they love to interact and they love to be more relatable to the organic content because most people can't get highly edited content, so they're going to want to watch that because it's more relatable. So with that being said, putting that on your stories, and not only that, the polls and the questions and links makes the stories way more interactive because people want to touch something. People want to be a part of a change or people want to be able to be reactive to you just as much as possible. So being able to have like the polls and you can put little stickers on your stories, little smiley faces and little flames and stuff like.
And going back to the questions, like if you wanted to make it, again, you don't have to make it business related, but if you wanted to make it business related, you could ask a question, something about the lines of, when was the last time that you experienced this? Or if you wanted to make it more personal, I would say something like, based on your thoughts, like what religion are you? Or whatever the conversation is that you want to spark up, because then that's going to create a conversation. And then that way you can carry that conversation in the DM. The reason I keep saying in the DM is because again, stories is the cherry to your funnel essentially.
It goes down in the DMs. Simple. It really does go down
so
in the DMs.
They came to your page for a reason because they know that you have something to teach them. They already trust you. They already know that you're an authority and you're bigger. So the only other thing that they can do with you when they're looking at your stories is get to know you more or work with you. So ultimately, that's your goal out of your stories is how can you get this person in a DM conversation, or how can you get this person to keep talking to you in a conversation? Because again, at the end of the day, you want to convert your audience. If you're not converting your audience, it means that you're not delivering your message in a way that could help them. And so that's something that we talked about in another call, is that a lot of people think that sales is like this icky thing. And when you change your perspective on sales and you think about sales as a way of how are you helping somebody help themselves, all we're doing is providing a solution. We're helping somebody help themselves. And if you don't look at it that way, it means that you're only looking at it for the transaction that's occurring. So I want you guys to all take that approach when you're thinking about your services and when you're putting these polls and links in your stories, is because you're doing a service or you're doing a benefit to the world by showing up and letting somebody work with you, rather than work with somebody that might not even do the job correctly, or they might have to come back and spend some more money with another person because they never found you.
Yeah. And then let's go back to our pain points because I hear this a lot. Well, Matt, I don't have the time to do this, or Matt, I didn't create it, or I didn't have any ideas. The same thing I told you guys about your next week schedule. Go to next week, go to November, whatever, what was it, 17th or whatever it was. Look at your calendar for next week. You can literally steal the idea that Jazz just had up here. So a poll question link. So you can do 3 stories in a week. Write down 3 days that you're going to do a story. Write down which day you're going to do a poll, which day you're going to do a question, which day you're going to post a link, and actually do the research on the polls and the questions and the links that you're going to post to your stories. So if you know that you have a nonprofit, a poll could be, hey, have you joined a nonprofit, or have you ever worked with a nonprofit? That can be a poll or a question. One of the links for the day can be a link back to your story, or one thing that Jazz started doing was telling stories within the interactive story. So usually what I was doing was I was posting this one link to my story, and then that was it. I didn't have a story with it. But now when I post links to my stories, I actually give people an ad copy that they can read that's relatable to the link that I want them to click on. So you're creating like a bypass or a funnel throughout your stories as well. And not only that, now you don't have no excuse as to why you're not posting stories, because I literally just told you next week, line up your 3, figure out what you're going to post for the week. And then by the time next week comes up, you don't have the excuse of, well, I didn't have time to create it, or I didn't get it done, because you already scheduled your stuff for next week.
Yeah, and going back to stories, I just want to use this example because it is something that a coach brought out to me and I haven't been able to get out of my head is, who's watched Harry Potter in the past? Is anybody a Harry Potter fan? I
Yeah.
so I love Harry Potter because of the story behind it. And so she put it in that perspective is anytime that you're posting content, anytime that you're posting a story, think about it as if somebody was getting to know you as the character. You know, when we got to know Harry throughout the books, we didn't know the whole story in the first book. We started out with knowing a little bit about his background, a little bit about what's going on, and then every book led us to new information. So that's how you want to carry your stories is, you don't want to tell them everything, but at the beginning, maybe you just want to introduce yourself through a story. Maybe you tell them like, hey guys, I haven't introduced myself in a while. Here's a link to a video that will introduce myself.